Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pints and Politics. My name is Drew. I'm here with Representative Mike Weiner, and we are in Eagle Bend today. Uh, for those of you who have followed us on Rumble, we've been here for our Christmas episode. It's still there. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen on YouTube. We're on both platforms, but if you have not seen our Christmas special from last year, go watch it. It was beautiful.
Think that was our best show, one of our best shows.
Oh yeah,
We had a great guest that joined us. It was a lot of fun.
yeah, a lot of fun. We're here today. We're right up on the 2024 election cycle. So at the time we recorded, we don't know who won yet, but we're here and we're going to talk about kind of the government, just in general. Are we a democracy or a republic, Mike?
It's a good question. I think Thomas Jefferson said that democracy is nothing more than mob ruling.
Which is weird, because the Athenians were a democracy, considered the fathers of democracy. They weren't mob per se. They had mob actions, but not quite mob rule. They would elect leaders and have they'd elect their generals. Their Pericles was elected by the people, and he was in charge of a lot of stuff. It wasn't the people in charge of the mob and everything.
So I'm going to use my Merriam-Webster dictionary, my handy dandy from here. And democracy comes from the Greek root meaning ruled by the people. Most basic understanding of the word's original meanings refers to direct democracy of the ancient Greeks. So, republic comes from the Latin root meaning public good or public affair. Used in ancient Rome to simply mean state or country, with reference to the representative democracy of the Roman Republic.
Okay.
So, and that's what we hear a lot, a representative republic or constitutional republic. That was one definition that I kind of liked because it said a democracy, the rule of the mass or the majority can crush basically the minorities. But in a republic, the rights of the minorities are affirmed in a constitution, and your representatives represent the people who they represent, are elected by the people they represent. So we are in a representative republic or a constitutional republic, and even our Pledge of Allegiance states that. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One nation under God.
Yeah, that's another thing too, but we can dive into that in a minute.
Mhm.
So when it comes to the differences, from my perspective, they're both I like to use the term democratic umbrella because they're both people voting the rule of the people.
Sure.
It's just there's another tier in a republic, whereas in a republic you have this thing where the people elect representatives who will vote in the interests of the people who voted for them.
Well, I think in that definition it talked about public good. So a lot of times we hear the Democrats speak about the greater good or the public good. Well, that's actually a hallmark of a republic and not a democracy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, because a democracy, you would, for any issue, you would have the people come and vote, like everyone come and vote on it. A republic seems to be a little bit more efficient, where you can get it's like polling, but the person polled will come in and vote on what the people want based on the poll.
Well, and
That makes
we
sense.
have issues that come up to the public or
Yep.
constitutional amendments.
Yep.
That's put to the public vote. So there is aspects, I would say, of our government that is based on a democracy.
Yeah. So, and I like that. I kind of like having this idea. And the Romans actually did this in their republic, early on. I don't know if you know about this, Mike. Well, what would happen is you'd elect your representative, and then there'd be a vote in the Senate, and the Senate would then send that legislation over to what was called the Centurion Assembly, which was kind of an assembly of 100 citizens. Think of like a jury, but with 100 instead of 12, right? And they would have to rubber stamp it where they would vote and see whether that bill actually got signed into law. So the people were the executive branch in that aspect.
They had a three-tier government.
The Romans,
Yeah, didn't they?
in a sense, I don't know if I'd call it three-tiered because you had the Senate, and then eventually you ended up with the the Council of Tribunes, which was the plebs. So you had two different political castes, as it were. You had the patricians, which were families that had origins at the founding of Rome, and then you had the plebs, which came in after.
But wasn't the law like the judiciary?
They were senators. So you could get the office of praetor as a senator, but they would all be patricians in that regard. When we're talking legislation, you would have your senators, you'd have your council of plebs.
Well, and really, the House of Representatives is called the People's House.
Yep. So it's it's actually that same kind of model where you have the senators are supposed to be more noble, in air
Well,
quotes.
and what does senator mean?
Old man.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And what does it say on the floor of the House when you look up behind the speaker? Vox populum est Dei.
Oh, that. Yep. Voice
Voice of the people is the voice of God.
Yes. But so essentially, we have the people choosing our leaders, which I would say is democracy just in general, where the people vote, they come together and they agree on leadership and on policy. And a republic is just an extra step where your vote leader is to vote on the policies on your behalf.
But now I think we've run into something else.
We have, and actually, I believe I've identified the problem, and I call it bureaucracy.
Bureaucracy.
Because let's take let's be non-controversial today and take the FBI. Yeah, nobody votes in the director of the FBI. Who's he accountable to?
I do not know. Is that appointed by the president, but then confirmed
By
by the Senate?
That would be a check in our United States checks and balances. But essentially, so replacing him can be really hard.
Sure.
And can the president fire him at will?
I've never looked into it. I guess
So that's one of the
above
things.
my pay grade.
But essentially, you have these people who are, I'll use the word entrenched, they're in there, they do a good job staying in there. And in bureaucracy, you can just you can push papers and pass your problems along to the next guy.
Well, and I think the bureaucracy is a little bit more than that, to be honest with you. It's not just the head of those government entities, but it's the staff, it's the functions beyond just the head. Because that doesn't change.
Exactly.
You can replace the leader of those entities, those three-letter entities, but at the same time, the bureaucracy, the staff, and everything else, the wheels, the gears are already in motion, and that you're not changing. So
They exert authority over you,
yes,
over us, and we don't vote for them. So the American bureaucracy is incredibly undemocratic in general. So
well, we've talked about Paul Harvey's freedom to change many times. I bring it up. I love that one because it's so simple. People can listen to it. It's 10, 12 minutes. It just explains things so easy. Our bureaucracy has grown because the people have demand or asked more of their government. And every time government grows, every time you ask for something, they're going to supply it. Pretty soon you have larger and larger government. And in Minnesota, this is a prime example. The jobs that have been created, and it's been touted by our, comrade Rose, that we've created all these jobs. Well, if you look at the jobs that are created, the main sector that is hiring people is what? Government.
Yep. And this is actually the perfect segue because I was looking up the 10th Amendment for some reason. I was thinking about seatbelt laws. I'm very libertarian on seatbelt laws. Don't kill me. But the 10th Amendment talks about any powers not given to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people, meaning that there are jobs that the government should not be involved in.
Right.
And with bureaucracy, it gives the government that in for jobs that they're not meant to be a part of. And I like to think of, actually last session, day one even, where on tax committee, I believe there was an issue of Beltrami County, way up north. and they were built a prison. They had paid for it with county tax dollars, but they needed approval from the state down in St. Paul to build it. Do you remember that? It was like a county jail. If you don't, that's okay.
Was that the tax exemption for the materials?
I I don't know if it was taxes. All I know is that they needed green lighting for the county to build it because they already had all the money allocated and everything in place to go. It's just the tax committee down in St. Paul had wanted to have a say in it.
Well, that may be based on a local option sales tax.
Okay.
So, and I'm not sure if Beltrami knew that. That's something that's been discussed many times. And there's actually upcoming meetings on local option sales tax that are going to take place. I don't know for sure if that's the situation.
But so should Beltrami, actually, my question is, should Beltrami County have that authority to raise a little bit of taxes, or do they need state approval? Or should they have state approval for that? I suppose is my question.
Well, and I look at it as that's the responsibility of those people in that area and the taxpayers. If they both fit to have a local option sales tax, it's if they want to spend money frivolously in an area, I guess that's for them. To have the okay from the state is a whole nother issue. Yeah, so it's a couple different things.
Yeah, so, well, you see where I'm going at with the 10th, well, like, is this a role that the government should be in? Like, you have a local entity wanting to build something, or even if you're a personal, like, let's say in Minnesota, you need a permit to purchase for a handgun or for an AR-15. Is that really the government's business, what you do with your money if you're buying something legally?
Well, the Second Amendment,
Yeah,
gets brought up many times, the right to keep and bear arms. Seems pretty clear to me,
yeah. It's,
but
yeah.
there's people who do not want those things to happen.
So
So,
I'm thinking it's just kind of like it's getting in the way. And I bring this up because I recently won a gun at at a raffle, really, a gun raffle.
sure.
And it was a handgun, and I needed all my permits are expired, so I had to go reapply for them. And so I needed permission from my government to go and purchase something. And we already have background checks, right? And I'm okay with background checks. I get it. But I just don't understand why. I understand why, but I just think it's kind of frivolous to demand this extra step. It's
Well, I think this comes down to something that I've actually thought about quite a bit. So I did an interview with the paper, one of the local papers. They were asking me questions, different thoughts. It was going to bring into an article, you're up for your election. My competitor as well had time. And when we got all said and done, he said it sounds like typical Republican talking points. I kind of stopped it because I thought, well, then I have not articulated the message well enough.
yeah,
Right? I haven't explained why I'm against government bureaucracy. I haven't explained why I'm against more taxes. I haven't explained why I'm against more regulation. And I think it's a pretty easy thing to see in our government and in politics today. When you break those things down, what does it come down to? It comes down to freedom. Very simply, freedom. The freedom to decide for yourself what's the best situation, what's the best thing for you. And government, and this is two diametrically opposed positions right now that are facing off in government. Who makes the best decisions for you? You or government? And I say it's the individual. So you can even take something, and we'll talk about free lunches and so forth. Take something like that. So the free lunches has been talked about, discussed. People say it's a great thing for kids. I understand that we have kids that need that help. There's been assistance to that before, but the question really has to be raised. Why is it that so many people in Minnesota cannot afford their lunches, their kids' lunch in this state? And it's because government providing more and more of those services is taking more and more of their tax dollars.
does it also make people lazy? And sociological.
There's an aspect to that, but if a number of years ago, you used to be able to raise a family, have a home, a car, and one bread or three things,
Yeah.
right? But your tax dollars, your percentage of tax taken out of your check was about 15%. I'm talking early 70s. Now, the way it works is government's taking about 45% of every dollar that you earn. So for every dollar, you're only getting a little bit more than half of it. I'll put inflation on top of this, which is another government problem because of the situation that government policy has created. 20% basically is what the number is kind of floating at right now due to inflation. So if you're working, for every dollar that you're earning, 65% of it basically is going from taxes or is covering taxes and inflation. Now you wonder why it takes two people to have two breadwinners in the house to support a family. Because government is taking the fruits of your labor. If you're going to have to work until September every year to pay for regulations, to pay for government, to pay for bad policy, no wonder people can't afford their kids as much. I'm saying, let people decide for themselves. Give them 60, if they're pulling 65% of their income, let them have a larger portion of their income. The government only needs 15%. And then those things that you can't afford right now, suddenly you can afford. Because when government has to pick winners and losers, that is a terrible thing. And who's better to pick for your kids' lunch than you? I have a 15-year-old son. I have a 13-year-old daughter. Are they going to eat the same thing? They want to eat the same things? Is their serving size going to be the same? I know my son is going to eat way more than my daughter would. That should be up to me as a parent to decide, not the government. And I think Ronald Reagan talked about that very well. He said, once we lose those freedoms, we'll never get them back. And here we are giving up our freedoms. And government is taking that responsibility. And as government grows, the individual gets, and we're losing more and more of our freedoms. And that's the terrible thing of what's going on right now. That's that diametrically opposed position where I believe the individual can decide what's best for them, where the other side here says government knows best for you.
So next question. We were talking about freedom a lot. Can we have freedom in a democracy? Or can we have freedom in something that's not democratic or republican? Can you have freedom in communism? It sounds like we're walking into socialism here a little bit. I guess I'm preempting it.
Well, in our own state, when we look at it,
Look at that. Get some candy.
Enjoy. What do you think?
Sure. I guess I'll get a sucker.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Thank you. I told you this is a great bar. I didn't even have to go door knocking.
Look at that.
But socialism is something that we see quite a bit. We've talked about it on the podcast. And we've also said, this is not your daddy's Democrat Party. This is not the Democrat Farmer Labor's Union that it used to be.
Yep.
It is DSA, Democrat Socialists of America. And they're proud of it. Socialism is when what? Government controls the means of production. So when they can control businesses, this is something that people don't think about either. You hear the Democrats talk a lot about corporate greed, right? We need to tax those terrible businesses. And yet at the same time, government and the Democrats pat themselves on the back when they take your tax dollars, they run it through a government entity and then give it to a business to grow or expand. Or maybe it's the climate, solar and wind or whatever else. They're going to take your dollars, pick their pet projects, pat themselves on the back, and then they're going to say those darn corporations are charging too much. You just gave my tax dollars. And then you're going to complain about them making too much money. A little bit of a hypocrisy there.
So back to the question, can you be free under socialism? Under the idea of how socialism works, I'm going to say no, because they're going to control you through money at the best option. If not, it'll be full on authoritarian with violence. That makes sense. Because if they can't price you out, they'll shoot you. Right? Again, socialism is akin to communism, which in my mind is akin to slavery.
Well, socialism and communism are one step away from each other.
Yeah.
And when we're sliding into that in our state, we have so many veterans who have fought
Yeah.
for us to be here. And now you're going to elect or vote for a party that fully embraces government control and is the move into socialism. I don't understand that. And I don't understand why people who have given so much for this country, Democrat, you see your freedoms getting restricted and taken away, controlled. I don't understand. Really don't.
It's I think people like handouts, you know? Like which is it easier to work for something or have something given to you? Obviously the answer is have something given for you. Because the easiest thing to do in any situation is nothing. Just sit around and wait. But, you know, life doesn't work that way. In life, you have to work for your things. Under a democracy or a republic, either one, we're still putting these two against each other, Mike. Don't forget. We're talking about a lot of things: freedom, communism, democracy, and republic. And if you want to live in either a republic or a democracy, very simple. You have to put in work. You can't sit around. You have to go out and vote. And and also, in order to vote proper, you need to know what you're voting on. And in order to know what you're voting on, you need to put in the effort to research what you're voting on. Because you can have something like, hypothetically, you can have a clean water bill that just allocates funds over to a bureau that spends it however they see fit without your say on how your government spends your money. How's my rant so far? Pretty good?
It's pretty good. And I was
Pretty good?
thinking that
I think,
there's no free lunch. We've discussed that many times.
yeah. So ultimately, democracy, and I would say democracy hinges on freedom. And again, when I'm saying democracy, I'm including republic because they're very similar. I believe we defined that. But in a democracy, yeah, you have to put in work, and under a bureau, they take that work and put it on themselves. And when they have that work that they're putting on, they get more authority over you. I believe I'm talking in circles now, Mike. Help me out here.
No, I see what you're saying, and those handouts. So, what are the basic needs of a person, of a man?
Food, water, and shelter. And if you can, and this goes back to Stalin's chicken. If you can provide those three, if you provide those three basic things, you can own someone. We saw it with slavery, like chattel slavery. You can watch any slavery movie, like especially Roots. Go watch Roots. The slaves, all they had to do was work for the master, but they had food, they had water, and they had housing. I mean, granted, they were mistreated, horribly mistreated. Very anti-slavery over here. But they didn't have to make decisions. All they had to do was wake up, work the fields, work the house, and then they had their food and their water and their shelter. Obey the master, and then you can stay with your spouse and have your kids.
What's the opposite of slavery?
Well, it'd be freedom. Actually, and it's scary because you have to provide for yourself.
So if our freedoms are being taken away, then we are sliding into
Slavery.
slavery.
And if we fall under that, like government-run slavery or communism, you are dependent upon your government to feed you. In a government that may or at their whim, they will feed you or water you or shelter you on their whim. They will force you to fight and die for that. And we see the treatment with our veterans even. Like our veterans could probably use some more benefits, which is, yeah. You know, they fight and they die for us. We should at least be able to have a working VA. But under communism, those benefits will just go away when they own it. I believe, what's her name? Up in Fargo. No, she, yeah. Huh?
The representative?
No, she gave us, we went to her speech a while ago. It was a year ago. Chris Ann Hall.
Oh,
She brought this up. And when your government provides your food, water, shelter, and shelter includes security, mind you. So if they tell you when you can and can't defend yourself, they own you. I remember that specifically. And you need to provide your food, your water, your shelter, which includes your security. Which is why we hold the Second Amendment in such high regard, because we provide our own security. We keep our house safe. We keep our families.
Well, it's in human nature to build.
Yes.
So if you're put out into the situation in the woods or something like that, and there used to be that TV show Lost, or not Lost, Lord, right? They put these people out in the sticks somewhere, and they give them a few tools, and they have to survive alone. What did they do? The first thing was building a shelter.
Yeah. You thinking alone, or you thinking Naked and Afraid? Because Naked and Afraid does that too.
Never watched Naked and Afraid.
Yeah, I guess it's the same concept, but they're naked and scared.
It would make it even worse.
Right? But that's pure freedom. It's scary. It actually is scary.
Sure.
Because you have imagine going out into the woods you don't have a tent. So go camping without a tent, essentially, or food. Just bring a machete with you.
Well, what happens when you're put into that situation? The first thing you do is just get the shelter to survive.
And then
And after that, well, right, you start improve. You make sure you got water, fire, and you start improving the situation.
Yeah.
Right? You go from just living under a tree, perhaps, to start building a shelter and making it more secure. And that's human nature. We build, we develop. But when you take that away from people, when government controls them, it takes away that human side of it, the human aspect, and it crushes that spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, then you stop building.
Exactly.
Then we get cultural stagnation and cultural. Okay,
Look
so
at what happened in Russia.
Yep. So we're still on the topic of freedom. Yeah, just a
We keep
reminder.
circling back around.
Well, no, we're still on that topic. We're circling around it with this whole thing about building and slavery and this human psyche. Is now on. Yeah, look at Russia, the collapse of the Soviet Union. People didn't want to work. They didn't want to do anything. But also, something to look into. You can Google this. The Rag Utopia experiment from the 60s.
Isn't that amazing?
It is, because the whole population, it wiped itself out.
Right.
Every,
All the needs were met.
yeah. They stopped building, they stopped having kids, and eventually all of them died down to the mouse.
If Ethan, if maybe we can find a link for that, if nobody else has seen that, it is absolutely amazing what happened in that experiment. And then you see, are we the same as these rats?
I think we're getting close. So we're not rats. We can overcome this because we're smarter. But at the same time, we must also be higher beings than the animal instincts inside of us. Because
we have an intellect, we have a knowledge, we have so much more than animals do.
yeah. Speaking of,
Yeah.
what?
So I wouldn't think that we would have to follow the same path as the rats.
Yeah.
We have to learn from those mistakes. Have more trick-or-treaters coming into the
Yeah, so we're filming on Halloween.
Yep, it's Halloween.
So I didn't wear a costume. Mike dressed up as a politician. Real scary.
Something like that.
But yeah, no, and so I think we're gonna start wrapping it up. It's been really fun here. It's always a blast here. Every time we show up at Eagle Bend. I don't know what it is
Yeah.
of the town, but
You
check-
don't know what's going to walk through. A dinosaur just came in.
yeah. But so to wrap up, we outlined, I guess, 4.5 government types. Yeah, because democracy, republic. We talked about freedom a lot, but democracy, republic, socialism, communism. Put them together for the 3, and then a slave setup. So we got 3, 4 government types. How would you rank them in one sentence as to why? Top, best one to worst one. Quick tier list.
I think slavery would be on the very
Bottom.
least appealing to anyone. But
Okay.
communism is now much further behind because there's so many similarities. And then you have socialism. Then democracy, because as Thomas Jefferson said, democracy is nothing more than mob rule. And then our republic. And that to me comes down to just one simple thing. when I say I am against taxes, regulations, and all of this stuff, it's because it crushes our freedoms. The freedoms for us to decide what is best for us. And it puts government in control. And that would be that socialism that we're sliding into.
Nice. Well said. So mine, I guess I'll start from the bottom and go up. See, with slavery, obviously the bottom. I mean, if you're a slave owner, that's great, but also it's morally reprehensible.
Yeah.
Being a slave is awful. Don't want to be there. Communism, essentially the same thing where you have, except it's public owned. So you have your administrators. They end up telling you what to do. In communist Russia, they would tell you what to do, and that's what you had to do. And then you also get a huge amount of nepotism in communism.
Oh,
Communism, socialism, you get less of that, less of a degree. It's still, you're still pretty much giving everything to the state, like so much. You get more freedoms under that, and we like freedoms.
absolutely.
I like being able to decide what to do with my labor and my life. And then I would actually, yeah, I'd agree with you, Mike. Democracy, like a pure democracy. I like the idea of people coming to an agreement. I might be the most democratic person in this room. Like not Democrat Party, but just like the idea of people voting. I would put more things to the public vote personally. And then for Republic, I just like a Republic so much because of how efficient it can be when you get the right people in. And I just want a little bit more democracy in. Sure. Gentlemen.
What are we doing? We got to
Hey,
get
yes. Hey, Tim, how you doing? Want to give a shout out?
great.
Yeah. What do you want to say to the people here? What's that? You want to
You're
say,
being-
you're on, you're live.
Am I?
Yeah,
Oh,
say
yeah.
something. Hey, you want to say something?
Well, you know.
There we go. This guy likes Republic. I guess if we just took a poll of the board, Republic wins.
Yeah, I'm thinking Trump is going to pull very well here.
Well, here. Thing is that we got 7 or 8, 9 maybe counties in the state that say, oh, wait, the other way.
Well, I would probably say it's only 2 counties, Anoka and Hennepin, and it's even just a small portion.
You mean up to
Small portion. Oh yeah. This
I hope you pull this one out. My God.
this is a blue. This is not a blue state. This is a red state with just a couple dots of blue.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, absolutely right.
Smart guy right here. He joined us for our Christmas talk here.
Hey, wanted to get on again.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen.
Well, we're wrapping this up. Any words of wisdom?
All right. I'm going to tell you the truth, sir, and everything. If we can't, if Trump can't get back in and we can't get the Senate out, sir, this country's really going to feel bad.
It's because of socialism?
Yeah.
Alrighty.
That's great because that was exactly our
I
discussion.
think he was paying attention off screen. Either that or he's smarter than we are.
So we would lose our freedoms, and that's exactly what we're
That's
talking about.
absolutely right. And he'll be after. That's her. All our boss freedoms are fine.
So
Free speech are only working.
yeah,
And of course, we'd like to get away from checking amendments and all that. And all that stuff. This beyond wait.
Absolutely.
so I wanted to leave us with a quote today, and I found this today. I was looking at Thomas Jefferson, and I love this one. It says, "In matters of style, swim with the currents. In matters of principle, stand like a rock." And I think when it comes down to our voting, more freedoms, everything else, we need to stand on principle. There's a lot of times you're going to get, what about this? What about that? Stand like a rock on those principles. It'll carry you through life. It's a great thing. And I think that's probably what we want to end up with.
Absolutely.
Vote your freedoms.
Vote your values.
Both values and freedoms, that's, we do want a lot of people, instead of you gotta break it down. Think about your kids and your grandkids. You want them to have the freedom you have.
Absolutely.
Great words. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys so much.
Love it.
I'm Drew, here with Mike and guest Tim.
Like,
Good to see you.
For joining us.
Thank you guys so much for watching Pints and Politics. God bless you.
Major option.